You know, there's one more thing that's exacerbating this, and I think it is new in the last few months, and it's a viciousness by which the Prime Minister's office is fighting back. And I want to bring it back to Lavscam. Remember, that's the nickname for the SNC-Lavalin corruption matter that Jody Wilson-Raybould said, I absolutely will not let them off the hook. And Trudeau and his staff, in 10 meetings and 10 phone calls, tried to get Jody Wilson-Raybould to let them off the hook, and she wouldn't. So fighting with her, fighting with Jane Philpott, but that fighting is plumbed to a new depth. And I'd like to ask you about this because you wrote this in your column. Let me just read the headline to your column a couple days ago. The latest Lavscam excuse is illogical and unbelievable. What the PMO is doing, and maybe you can give us the facts, is they're sort of rooting around in anything she did as Justice Minister for 2 years and trying to say she was a terrible Justice Minister, just terrible. I mean, look at this. Give us some facts that you mentioned in your column.
Well, back in 2017, when Beverly McLaughlin stepped down as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, there was a vacancy, not only for the Chief Justice, but on the 9-member court. And so, according to the whisperers now, the anonymous sources who are trying to recreate or resurrect Trudeau's image, Wilson-Raybould advanced the candidacy of Glenn Joel, who is the Chief Judge of the Queen's Bench Court in Manitoba. And he's a 20-year prosecutor. He studied at Oxford. He's bilingual. And my digging around with the Winnipeg legal community the day this story arose, they said his judgments were so thorough and so well thought out that they were almost unappealable. If he gave you a trial judgment, there was very likelihood you were ever going to get the Manitoba Court of Appeal to hear any kind of revision to that. So a very, very smart guy. But he gave a speech one time at a constitutional foundation where he said, you know, I'm a big believer in individual rights rather than collective rights. And I am a little worried. The original intent of the charter was not to give judges preeminence over the legislatures and parliament. In fact, on two particular cases, same-sex rights and abortion rights, when this came to hearings before the parliament, the legislators were assured, the parliamentarians were assured, no, judges would never override the will of parliament on those two matters. Well, of course, the judges quickly invented reading into the charter, and they overrode Parliament quickly. And so he said, I don't think that's right. My thought is that there should be a better dialogue between the courts and Parliament. And so he's a very thoughtful guy. Mm-hmm. But because he wasn't immediately in favor of judicial activism and didn't think the charter trumped anything political, that was considered conservative by Trudeau, apparently. Now, one of the parts I don't believe about this story is somebody said, well, Trudeau read a speech that Joel had given. Trudeau didn't read any speech that a judge had given. Maybe he was given a copy of the speech with highlights to say, look, this is what this guy has said. But not even the smartest prime ministers kicking around looking at journals of dusty constitutional forums and remembering the details of judges before they've been nominated and what they said. So that was unbelievable. Also, if he was so upset about this and so upset about Wilson-Raybould pushing this quote-unquote conservative judge on him, he had a major cabinet shuffle after that incident and well before the SNC-Lavalin story began, where he could have shuffled her, but he didn't. So that means their story doesn't make sense there. The other thing, though, that isn't hard for anyone to remember is that February 7th is when the SNC-Lavalin story began. For the next 6 weeks after that, when you had the prime minister himself, or Gerald Butts, or Michael Wernick, the retired clerk of the Privy Council, talking about this, none of them ever said that the tiff between Trudeau and Jody Wilson-Raybould had anything to do with anything but SNC-Lavalin. It was all about SNC-Lavalin. They all said, yes, okay, so we were talking to her about that, but we didn't realize that she thought she was under pressure, or we weren't trying to, the pressure we were putting on her wasn't inappropriate pressure. There was no intent to politically interfere. No, all of this centered around SNC-Lavalin. Now, as of last weekend, the people who are trying to resurrect Trudeau's image are saying, well, no, it never had anything to do with SNC-Lavalin. It had to do with this judge, which is so cockamamie. It's hard to believe that grown-ups are even trying to convince you of that.
That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day I do a video monologue and then I interview an interesting guest, and then I end by reading my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.